Today is an exciting day. Today marks the beginning of the comeback of a legendary StarCraft 2 pro gamer. According to his Wikipedia page, his military service is still ongoing. It started apparently on the 5th of October in 2022. Usually it's about 18 months long, and that means that he, well, literally this week I would imagine, wrapped up his military service because his Wikipedia page isn't even updated yet. Now, whenever you would ask players, right, a couple of years ago, who they think the greatest StarCraft 2 player in the world is, the greatest of all time, usually three names would be brought up. It would be Serral, it would be Maru, and then it would be the man right over here in the top left-hand corner of a map called Ghost River. Playing right here with the red Zerg drones, we have one of the very few StarCraft 2 tournament-winning millionaires. We're looking at none other than Rogue's main hatch. His opponent in the top right, playing with the blue Protoss pieces. He's one of the best Protoss players from Korea, and he goes by the name of Nightmare. Alrighty, Rogue takes on Nightmare. This is the first series that Rogue played after completing his military service. He seemingly came out of nowhere. I don't think he announced it anywhere. I don't think he really mentioned that he was going to be playing in a tournament, but I'm pretty sure he came back home and maybe practiced for a day or two and then signed up for the weekly ESL Open Cup for the Korean server, which is where this particular series is from. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with Rogue, maybe you've only been watching for a little while, maybe you've started watching StarCraft 2, which would be really cool, actually, after the man started up his military service. Here is a quick list of the tournaments, the premier tournaments that he has won throughout his career. I'm not going to name them all because there are too many. But in 2017, he won the World Championships for $280,000. He won IM Katowice in both 2020 as well as 2018 for $150,000 apiece. GSL Codes in 2019, GSL Codes in 2020, GSL Codes in 2021, GSL Codes in 2022, GSL Super Tournament in 2017, GSL Super Tournament in 2021, TSL in 2021 rather, IM Shanghai in 2017. Anyways, long story short, this man has been exceptionally successful, and this is his first series back. As far as StarCraft 2 tournament winning millionaires go, we have Serral sitting at $1.5 million, Maru at $1.3 million, Dark at $1.1, and then Rogue about $30,000 right below Dark. The fourth player, actually no, the fifth player on that list, the fifth highest tournament earner of all time in StarCraft 2 is Innovation at $800,000. So quite a distance between the number 4, which is Rogue, and then, well, the number 5. Innovation obviously doesn't play the game anymore, so I would imagine, especially with Dark supposedly starting off his military service sometime soon as well, that Rogue, assuming he continues playing, that we will see him overtake that third place position once again, the one that he used to hold for quite a long time. Now, as one pro gamer comes back, and another pro gamer is supposed to leave, right? Dark apparently is going to be starting up his military service sometime soon. Serral also announced that he is starting up his mandatory military service on the 14th of April. As a matter of fact, he has already been removed out of a League Elect for inactivity because he hasn't played a tournament in about 2 months. So, yeah, it's a little conflicting, you know. On the one hand, we have Rogue coming back. On the other hand, there's a very good chance we will not be seeing a whole lot of Serral and Dark sometime in the near future. Although Serral did say that he is still playing at least a couple of events, if he is allowed to. Alrighty. Now, I can imagine that Rogue is going to be incredibly rusty. That being said, rusty, he will still be able to smash you and me in a best of 5 series pretty easily, right? I mean, unless, you know, you are a high-ranking competitive player. Personally, I play this game quite a bit. I don't think I would be able to win a series against Rogue very easily. Although it would be, I guess, a Zerg versus Zerg if I had to, so maybe I would have a chance. But obviously, rusty pro gamers are still professional gamers. They're still going to be incredibly good. As we're making this video, by the way, Nightmare, I haven't really featured him too much over the last couple of months. But Nightmare, he hasn't really been playing that many events, I guess, so I haven't really been able to. But Nightmare is currently the rank 22 in the world on a League Elect. So certainly no slouch of a Protoss here whatsoever. Rogue playing quite aggressively here so far, but honestly, everything looks pretty normal. A large group of Zerglings, that is something he's always liked to do. That's in general something that the Koreans like to do. Slightly lower drone count maybe, but overall still more than healthy of an economy. Now this is that new school attack with a bunch of Adepts and then a bunch of Oracles. Normally we go 3 Oracles with about 5 Adepts. This is, I guess, a variation of that theme. He's gonna force out a bunch of Links at the very least. Yeah, he does commit with the Shade. Nightmare, if he targets drones, he should be able to kill quite a few of them, but he decides to go after the Links instead. Yeah, maybe a little bit greedy, but ultimately he does kill Links, and now he starts working on the drones. And this is one of those things that wasn't really played a year and a half ago. I mean, obviously it wasn't a strange combination of units, but this has sort of become the new standard, and you can see the strength of it when you are not properly prepared. 11 additional drones plus that many Links going down is certainly suboptimal right here for Rogue. I've got a feeling, though, that those sorts of attacks are just gonna, yeah, require a little bit of practice. As he is going, by the way, into +1 melee, so that's kind of cool. That is also a relatively new school thing. I mean, obviously, StarCraft 2 strategies in general tend to be cyclic. Or, how do you say that? They tend to move around in circles, is what I'm saying, okay? So basically, strategies that used to be popular years ago, they fade in and out of popularity over time. And this is one of those builds that, well, we have seen Zerg play many, many times in the past, but if I'm not mistaken, a year and a half or so ago, when Rogue first went off to the military, it was all about missile first. And delayed evolution chambers when you started up the lair. Anyways, so far, honestly, not a flawless game by any stretch of the imagination, but not really a sloppy one either. If you're unfamiliar, by the way, with Rogue's playstyle, so Rogue is an incredibly abusive Zerg. There have been periods in StarCraft 2 where certain build orders are just straight up busted, right? One of those that comes to mind for me personally is the Nidus Worm era. When the Nidus Worm was too powerful, Rogue would literally just play Nidus Worms every single game. He has no desire to try and put on a show for an audience. He doesn't really seem to do it for the fans. He just wants to win, and whatever it takes, he doesn't really care. What's funny, though, is that during that period when the Nidus Worm was so powerful, his late game was actually considered best in class. Like, this is quite a few years ago at this point, but he was considered to be the best late game player in the world. And then the best late game player in the world would just be playing, you know, a cheesy build every single game, just because he wanted to win, and that seemed to be the best chance. Anyways, Nightmare, going for an aggressive push over here. I'm liking this spot for Nightmare quite a bit. He is throwing a bunch of curveballs here, strategies that Rogue likely hasn't really seen that much. Obviously, there's a chance that Rogue has been watching some StarCraft. Maybe he got to practice some as well on the weekend, so maybe he's not quite as rusty as I, you know, would imagine him to be. So far, I'm impressed, though, with the way that Rogue is playing. But I can imagine he hasn't really competed, right, against any real high-ranking players. Yep, so this is that aggressive Blink Stalker follow-up. Nightmare did lose the 4th Nexus here, though, or at the very least he was forced to cancel it, which is a little bit annoying for him. Because that kind of puts him in a spot right now where he actually has to commit quite hard. Rogue is building up the Ravager count, and the Ravager count's looking pretty healthy. Look at him, going Baneling speed. Now that's relatively old school. Usually we tend to see, unless he's expecting Zealots or something, we tend to see more of like a Lurker-based army, or sometimes even Brute Lords, right? We see a bit of variety there. Banelings did get nerfed a whole lot, but these Banelings are going to be used offensively, it seems, rather than, At this point, I guess he hasn't really shown to Nightmare that he's got a Baneling nest at all. So not using them defensively, maybe hoping that he can suddenly catch his opponent off guard. Well, I think it's gotta be spotted here by Nightmare. Yeah, he's gonna see the Banelings. Okay, well, that surprise has been spoiled. May as well use them defensively now too, although against Mass Stalker, it might not necessarily be the best play. I really do like, though, what Nightmare is doing here. Yeah, he's built up his economical advantage, so the Banelings actually did decide to commit. Not really a whole lot of damage done. I don't think that was worth it. Anyways, build up his economical advantage, right? At the very least, make sure the Zerg player doesn't have a ton of drones themselves. And at that point, just, yeah, keep them occupied. Try to keep the Zerg to produce as many army units as possible. So strategically, all of this makes perfect sense right here for Nightmare. Another big run by, though, with Zerglings. That 4th Nexus, it's not going to be happening here anytime soon. More and more Stalker Warpins. We're now at 42 Stalkers. Look at this. Nightmare basically playing StarCraft 2 mono battles over here, where he's only allowed 1 unit. And you know what? Stalkers are pretty good. They didn't get buffed or anything. Oh, those biles. Those biles are massive. It's because he's busy defending right here at home. Yeah. This army, though, looks really difficult to stop. Now, Rogue is going to be forced to pull drones away from the mineral line as well. Reinforcing this with Zerglings. +2 melee does finish up. That Stasis Ward will soon run down, or run out, I guess. And that means that these Lings will wake up and continue fighting. With a couple of Lings over there trying to shut down that reinforcement point. I think the man has still got it. If this is what a rusty Rogue looks like, I think we should expect some very powerful games over the next couple of weeks. Nightmare forced to, transfer probes right now over and over, moving them on over towards the third base. So his economy, it's decent, but this is now turning into almost like a desperation all-in. He may still be able to get it though, because Zerg doesn't have that banging of an economy either. Oh my god, Rogue. I don't know if you're allowed to win your first series against another pro gamer when you when you come back from your military service. I don't know if that is, you know, in the pro gaming contract. Because that has got to be, like, imagine you're a Nightmare here and you're like, okay, we're going up against Rogue. This guy hasn't really played the game in a year and a half. I have been playing this game every day. I have been playing my heart out. It would be very insulting, I guess, for Nightmare to lose this series. Nightmare really has been growing a lot as a player, by the way. Really do like what he's been up to over the last couple of years. Maybe not quite at the level of, for example, you know, the top level Protoss players that I cast frequently on the channel, but he certainly is amongst the very best from the Korean server. But it is kind of difficult to be at a level of, for example, Hero, or for example, Classic, or Creator. Those are the Protoss names that pop up a little bit more frequently. Okay, more Banelings. A 30 supply lead right now for what a lot of players like to call a Rouge. Force Field? Force Field? No, Force Field. Now, here's a nerf. Do you think Rogue is aware of it? Here is a nerf that happened recently. Or at least while Rogue was in the military. +2 meleeed Banelings, no longer one-shot probes. That used to be the case for many years, but there was a nerf to the Banelings specifically to address that issue. So when Rogue went to the military, that particular play right there that we just saw would have killed about half the mineral line. Right now, not quite as powerful anymore, and it's one of the reasons why Banelings and +1 melee so quickly, I guess, has not really been played as much as of late. Although it's still a popular style overall. Yeah, this is an old school approach. It's funny how that always works out. Yeah, it's really not that difficult to stay up to date with strategies because they don't change that much. But, okay, well, more and more Banelings are rolling in. Battery overcharge, curious decision against units that do all their damage in an instant. Don't really think that did all too much, my god. I think Rogue is actually doing this. This is such a dirty game right here. 37 probes have gone down. Yeah, give Rogue a couple of weeks. Give him a bit of time to study some StarCraft replays and see what the other guys have been up to. Or maybe just experiment on his own. Maybe their Nidus Worm is still broken, who knows? I would wager that a lot of players have tried the Nidus Worm, but maybe there are some more abusive strategies. Yeah, what makes players like Rogue scary is that he doesn't really have any particular weakness at any point in the game, at least historically. There have been moments, for example, where somebody like Raynor. Raynor used to be extremely good in the mid game, but the late game, that's where he was lacking. Now, these days, obviously, he's also a fantastic late game player, but you can still see that focus on the mid game armies, usually, at least quite a bit, in Raynor's playstyle. Now, this is years ago. I'm talking like, I guess like 8-9 years ago or so. You would criticize his late game quite a bit. Rogue, in my mind, has never really had that. He never really had like a particular weakness. Strategically, very clever. Not afraid to abuse strategies that he feels like are broken, and just, in general, really confident, I guess, but then also really solid early, mid, and late game. No ability to cancel, though, on that particular hatch. Another Zergling run-by over here. This time around, it's on a bunch of Archons. So the problem right here, and this, again, is Yeah, this is an issue with him playing old school styles. We're still just sitting at Lair Tech. So we are 14 minutes into the game. 14 and a half minutes right now. We still do not have a hive. If you compare that to what the guys at the top level have been doing lately, like, there we go. Like, for example, Serral. We've seen a lot of games where Serral is going like 7-8 minute hive, right? Like a 10-minute hive is considered quite late in 2024. And Rogue is only just now really thinking about it, so... he had an advantage a little bit ago, but I really like what Nightmare has done here. Adding on additional oracles, trying his very best. He's making more, actually. We're going up to 6 oracles now. I think it's very clever. Yeah, Rogue is playing a style that's out of date. And even though strategic progression in StarCraft 2 is relatively slow, you can tell that in a year and a half, the game has progressed quite a bit. I always wonder, like, if you could travel back in time, right? If you could travel back in time with the knowledge that we have of this game right now, and you could bring all of this knowledge to, like, 2014, would you be able to dominate strategically? Obviously, it's a different balance patch. As a matter of fact, back then, Legacy of the Void wasn't even out yet. Probably not quite, but it's still interesting, because I guess, broadly speaking, strategies that were very good in, like, say, I don't know, 2018 or so, if you were to play them in 2024... they would not be quite at the same level, and the game is, I mean, changed obviously, but not quite as significant. A fun thought experiment, but until we invent time travel, not really something that we can reliably discover. Okay. So Nightmare has managed to claw himself back into this very nicely, though. He's now sitting at 69 probes. Nice! Sorry. That needs to be done. I don't make the rules. He's sitting at 69 probes, and that is going to give him a very solid economy. Rogue transitioning towards the late game. Adds on additional drones right now. I actually completely missed it. Apparently, we had a mass amount of oracles here, dealing so much damage to a mineral line that 15 probes have ended up going down. Some big transfusions as well on that Spore Crawler, though, to ultimately keep it around, but... that is going to now make the grand total of drones lost all the way up to 48. Okay. Yeah, Rogue is just sitting on a mid-game army. Yeah, I don't think you can really get away with this army anymore against this particular Protoss Ball. Especially not without Adrenal Glands and +3/+3 and all the rest of it. +3 about maybe 40% or so of the way done right here for Nightmare. I don't think he has been quite on top of those upgrades himself either. Ultralisk Cavern right now coming up. Interesting choice. That should normally not be the priority. A bunch of the queens have been caught off creep. Hatchery in the bottom left-hand corner in a bit of trouble. We have a Zealot run by towards the natural expansion too. Suddenly Nightmare seems to be everywhere. He's posturing with his main army here on creep, pretending that he's gonna move in, but I don't think he will. Zergling run-by right now, executed too. The Zergling run-by is quite important because Nightmare at this point is maxed out, so he can't actually warp in any units for the base defense. Instead, he decides to commit here at the front. That will probably drop his supply down, and then he can defend at home a little bit more easily. Zerglings right now, maybe all army hotkeyed back. Oracle's having a grand old time, though, zapping away at whatever they can hit. Ultimately, it's Nightmare who obtains the victory in game number 1, but I gotta say, I'm impressed. Alrighty, game number 2. We find ourselves on the map Golden Aura. I really wonder what StarCraft 2 is gonna be like in a year from now. I think the 2024 into 2025 seasons are gonna be very interesting. I think Serral's military service actually, so in Korea, the mandatory military service is about 18 months. The Finnish one is like, I think like 6 to 12 months or so is what Serral said, so it's not quite as significant. Plus, I've mentioned this before in previous videos too, but he basically gets to serve in a branch of the military where he will still be able to compete in some events, I guess with permission. So obviously, yeah, he would have to request time off, and that would probably be added to the end of the I don't know, it's gonna get messy, I guess. And he certainly will not be able to commit quite as much time to the game. Either way, yeah, it's gonna be interesting if both, like, hypothetically speaking, if both Dark and Serral are not actively playing. What in the world do the rankings even look like? Does Clem just win everything at that point? Because I'm actually kind of at a moment right now where I feel like Clem is favored against Serral, especially in online events. Like, Clem has looked ridiculous as of late. It's gonna be interesting. I actually really wonder who the rank 1 player in the world is in like a year from now. MaxPax is still improving. Rogue is come back right now. Obviously, we've had a couple of other pro gamers also return to the game, like for example, Parting. Although I don't really know exactly how much Parting has been playing StarCraft 2 for. If MaxPax starts playing offline tournaments and Serral and Dark are no longer competing, my god, we're gonna have an entirely different scene. Okay, so once again, normal opener here from Nightmare. I don't think Nightmare really needs to get too fancy. I think he must have picked up in that previous game that, hey, wait a second. Rogue is playing the boomer equivalent of strategies right now. I don't think I really have to worry about this all too much. Just keep throwing modern builds at him. You don't have to get tricky. You don't have to try and throw many just play what we consider to be normal StarCraft in 2024. I never really know exactly how strict the military service is over in Korea. I would imagine you do get some time off, right? If you're a professional gamer and you just kind of watch a couple of tournament matches from, say, I don't know, a Katowice or maybe Gamers 8 last year, or you kind of watch like the GSL Codes or whatever, if you just sort of follow it from a distance, even without playing, you should be able to at least stay up to date with strategies, right? But rarely does that seem to be the case. Whenever programmers return from their military service, they're always playing strategies that are like a year and a half out of date. It's like they haven't read the balance notes, you know, like they haven't even really looked at the updates. They just like reinstalled the game and are like, okay, baby, I'm back. It just seems funny to me how you can, you know, in prize money alone, right? Obviously, the money things that I mentioned earlier, that does not include team salary or anything else. I can imagine there are going to be quite a few teams that will be interested in potentially having a Rogue join them right now, too. Bare minimum would be to watch a little bit of GSL Codes and at least have a decent understanding. You don't even have to watch everything. Just in Rogue's case, just watch the Zerg games. It's not rocket science. Anyhow. Let's see. Gonna be a quick third Nexus right here. 350 or so on that third base. Although we do have Lynx here being annoying. Trying to be annoying at the very least. It's been, yeah, double Adept and a single Stalker. So the Nexus is gonna be a little bit later. But that is all okay. We do still see Banelings at the highest level, but in general, it's a bit of a different approach now, right? We see a lot more Lurker play, a lot more Brute Lord play. We see some Ultra play too, but in general, just more Hive-based styles, rather than focusing on the Lair-based armies, like what Rogue was doing in the previous game with Roach Ravager and Ling Bane. Since the Baneling nerfs, those have been strategies that, yeah, we still see, but usually not quite as common. So maybe it was just him experimenting with it, right? Maybe he decides to do something else entirely here in game 2. Aggressive droning. It's gonna be a Twilight Council on the back of this. I'm assuming it will once again be Blink, but I'm not seeing a Forge yet. I'm expecting a Forge to come up momentarily. 3 Oracles in total this time around. I don't know if I love the Stalker, by the way. I think the Stalker was okay at killing the Overlord, but I think just like triple Oracle, 5 Adept could be incredibly powerful. Look how greedy Rogue is right now with the droning. Queues up even more of them. Okay, it is going to be Blink, and there's the Forge coming up together with additional gateways. A revelation here at the third base. Well, it shows Nightmare right now that Rogue's economy is already off the charts. We're talking pretty much 60 drones at 5.5 minutes. Now finally a lair. This lair is late. Can he get away with it? Good control right down the Oracles. +1 melee coming up right now for a Rouge. As a lot of, well, internet users like to write. I actually get a little bit bothered by this. Whenever I see players or StarCraft fans write Rouge instead of Rogue. Look, I don't want to be a spelling elitist, okay? But come on, guys. Rouge? Really? To be fair, Rogue is a bit of a funky looking English word. I will give you that. Yeah. This bothered me too in World of Warcraft. Whenever people would like, you know, write the class Rogue as Rouge. For some reason, that bothered me greatly. Maybe I shouldn't tell you guys these things, because now the comment section is going to be filled with people typing Rouge. Anyways. I've mentioned before, for example, as well on stream, that I really dislike it whenever people use multiple exclamation points or multiple question marks or something like that. And obviously, for the rest of the hour, all of Twitch chat would be filled with multiple exclamation marks and multiple questions. It's like, no, this is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Hey, this is a quicker hive, it seems like, this time around here from Rouge. Once again, a bailing nest, though. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, maybe one downside for Rogue right now is that there's not really one go-to strategy for Zerg. I mean, obviously, strategically, that's good. But there's not really a abusive strategy, at least not one that comes to mind for me. There's a lot of, like, mute-up play as well. We see quite a bit of variety. Great movement here, once again, by the way, from Mr. Nightmare. Fourth Nexus, fully finished up at this point. Mostly just using his Oracles and his Stalkers right now to clear a bit of creep. Okay. Colossus transition. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad choice. So again, if we're gonna see a Ling Bane-based army, so obviously at this point Nightmare has clicked on those Zerglings and he sees that +1 melee is research, right? So you can obviously see that on your opponent's units when you click on them. He will probably assume that it's going to be a similar strategy as it was in the previous game. So we're going into range for Colossus. We're going into double big boy production. We're going into charge +2. This is Nightmare preparing for a very similar approach once again. There is, however, a hive coming up, but no Spire or anything like that. I think an instant Greater Spire would be amazing here for Rogue, because there will be very little anti-air available for Nightmare. So technically this is a bit of a gamble, because I don't think Nightmare really realizes it. No, he has not seen the hive in the main base. Has he seen the infestation pit? No, he has not seen the infestation pit either. Big recall over here, but that is of course your get out of jail for free card as Protoss. It encourages you to move around the map a little bit more easily. So what is the hive for? I'm hoping it's Vipers. If it's Vipers here for the Zerg, it's gonna be Adrenal Glands. Yeah, Adrenal Glands, Vipers. We have a second Evo Chamber for armor upgrades and then straight into Ultras again. So this is like half a game earlier as far as the hive goes compared to game number 1. Yeah, Rogue not afraid to play the big macro game. I actually expected him to play pretty cheesy, but not quite the case. So Vipers are nice because you can use them to abduct the Colossi. Now the Colossus will be spotted as well. Ultras are also really good. The only problem is that Rogue is still like 2, maybe 3 minutes away from having a powerful army. Like, this is that weird part for Zerg where, like, yeah, your army's kind of good, but you've also spent a lot of money in things that aren't useful yet. Like the Infestation Pit, the Hive, the Adrenal Glands, the Ultra Cavern, right? Like, with the +1 armor even. Like, all of those things have not really paid off. Zerglings over here are getting destroyed too. Those Zealots don't mess around with their +2 upgrade. And now we have a big attack moving forward right here as well for Nightmare. Banelings are rolling forward, but I think the Colossi will be more than happy about that one. Good target firing right there by our Protoss player. He gets rid of one of those Vipers easy peasy. In the meantime, Zealots are starting to move in everywhere. Rogue is forced to put out fights left, right, and center. And that is a bit of a disaster, it turns out. Yeah, lovely play right here by Nightmare. Took a bit of a chance, because he didn't know if it was going to be Brute Lords, but the thing is, this timing that he just hit would have hit before Brute Lords are out regardless. So you don't really need to scout that much. It could be a bit of a curveball. You obviously want to be prepared if it would be a Brute Lord based army, but I think strategically everything Nightmare did right here was right. And just like that, Rogue is pretty much dead. Now, Rogue is not somebody who GG's out early though, but I think he must realize at this point that it's going to be very difficult to come back. This is 5 base Protoss as well. Yeah, there's really no way. So ultimately, it's Nightmare who wins this best of 3 series 2-0. But I'm very curious what Rogue is going to look like in another month or two.